Good morning. Welcome to Zenglop, the podcast, music, poetry, and psychogeography. Check out the website, zenglop.net. All kinds of stuff there, links to previous podcast episodes, links to YouTube videos, blog posts, all kinds of good stuff. And a link to my newsletter, which I still haven't sent out. I'd promised that I would send out a monthly newsletter with kind of adjacent material, but I haven't gotten around to that yet, and it is now March. So maybe March will be the month where I do that. But go ahead and subscribe to the newsletter, and then when I do get around to putting one together, you'll be first on the list. So today I thought I would talk about journaling, which sounds a bit vague and maybe even a bit fluffy compared to some of the other stuff I talk about. But I think what I want to start with is like there are many different types of journaling, and they're all good. The same way there are many different types of meditation, and they are all good. It depends on the time, the focus, the person, the objective. So I thought I would talk about what I'm doing with my journals and why I enjoy it so much and why I think it's such a useful tool along with meditation and other creative activities. So first off, I would start by saying that I enjoy the physical act of writing. The tactile sensation of pen on paper. So I journal by hand rather than directly into the computer. And for a while, my journaling practice, and I would have to put quotation marks around that, my journaling practice was simply to copy stuff. Quotes or entire paragraphs from books I was reading, because what I really wanted was the feeling of pen on paper. That was my definition of journaling. It wasn't so much the content; it was the act of journaling. And I spent a lot of time thinking about what kind of paper to use and what pen to use. And all of that is still very important to me. I use different types of pen, different types of paper, depending on which part of the journaling process I am engaging in. So like I would copy over Annie Dillard essays. I'd copy a couple paragraphs each morning. And I had Rhodia Clairefontaine paper. And I have a Lamy 2000. Which is probably the nicest pen I own. I own a bunch of fountain pens, but they're all in the category of like useful daily use fountain pens, rather than the Lamy 2000, which is certainly a pen you should use every day, but it's a pen I would be sad if it got damaged, so I keep it at my desk at home and I use it. And my other fountain pens, if I dropped them in the toilet, I would be sad, but I would be able to replace them without a lot of grief. So, for example, in my habit tracker, which is the part of journaling that I actually really obsess about in terms of the structure and the way to do it. I have I'm going to hold it up for the camera here. It's actually one of the small sports style fountain pens that you really have to cap in order to be able to use it. Because then when the cap is on the nib, it's only about 3 inches. It's by the Moon Man Company. It's a beautiful little blue ink. And I use that for my habit tracking notebook, which is from the Cognitive Surplus Company. And that paper is a step above moleskin, but not quite as fine as the Rhodia stuff. But what they really do is these beautiful cover designs that I just find absorbing. So I have a habit tracker, which I am constantly changing. So it's not as effective as it could be, because the point of a habit tracker is that it be consistent and repeatable. But I firmly ascribe to the notion that 20 minutes a day on priority processes is sufficient to make progress. All right, so my writing, my practicing, the podcasting, it breaks up into 20-minute intervals. And now some things may get 20-minute intervals that occur multiple times through the day. For example, right now my meditation practice is 4 times a day, 20 minutes a slot. I start the day and end the day, and then I look for 2 sessions in the mid-morning and mid-afternoon to fill that out. My piano practice is made up mostly of small moments that I grab during the day in between work meetings. It's one of the benefits of working from home during the pandemic is I can close out a Zoom meeting, maybe have 7 minutes left before the next one starts, flip around and play. So it's made up of a lot of small sections. But I do try then to allocate 1 or 2 20-minute blocks to whatever I'm working on later in the day. Things like that. Right. So I have the habit tracker that represents my belief that small repeatable increments provides progress for those priority processes. It's process, right? Like my writing is a process. I don't have deadlines. I don't have pieces that need to be finished. I have a process of writing that occasionally leads to a finished piece. Then I have legal pad. I have a Cambridge legal pad, and I use that with a Retro 51 rollerball, the 8157 refill, which is slightly narrower. Currently blue ink, although I alternate between red and blue. And I use that for morning pages. So those of you who are my age remember in the 90s the Artist's Way, right? Julia Cameron had this whole series of books, but her first one, The Artist's Way, really had an impact on me. And it was a series of weekly exercises, maybe for a dozen weeks, on different ways to focus in on your creativity, creating space for your creativity, that kind of stuff. Good exercises, but what the key was that every morning you sat down and you wrote on 3 pieces of paper absolutely whatever was on your mind. So journaling almost as a hygiene practice, like brushing my teeth or taking a shit or something like that, right? It's something I'm going to do. I don't do 3 pages, but I have a piece of paper and I have small writing. It probably takes me, 7 minutes to do that page. And it seems to be sufficient. But the idea is that if I've whatever is on my mind, I've sometimes spent half a page writing. I don't know what to write. I'm not thinking about anything. What's this? I say the same thing over and over again. If there's something that's making me anxious, it will show up in the morning page because it literally is all I'm writing. If I'm honest about writing what I'm thinking deliberately, that internal anxious voice is often represented, or that internal frustrated voice, or the voice that is just immediately distracted by the surface. Right? That's what gets out on those pages. And until it's not that, until it's underneath that, it's very valuable. And I just started doing that with the new year again. The 90s are now 10 10 years ago, 2020. It's a long time ago. But I was quite disciplined about the morning pages, and so was my then girlfriend, now wife. I don't think she ever stopped doing them. I think she always did them. We had a circle of friends who were all very influenced by that book, and in particular the process of morning pages, because it really does, by writing it down, it makes you very aware of that, the monkey mind, the muttering mind, and then sometimes the peaceful mind. And it gets it all out there. So then periodically, like really when I'm done with a notepad, but in principle every week and then every month, I go through and I highlight quickly. I look through those pages, whatever nonsense I wrote, and I circle keywords. And then extract those out and see what they were, because it's usually interesting to see what occupied me. And then I throw them away. Those pages are not diaries. It's a download of information to be sifted through and then acted on and discarded. You say it's like hygiene. I don't keep my toothbrush when it's done. I don't keep toilet paper when I've wiped my ass with it, and I don't keep morning pages. But they're all necessary functions. All of that's very different from keeping a diary, which I actually don't do. I don't have a day-by-day calendar that I maintain and track what I did, who I saw, meeting notes, things like that. If I was ever a government official and was subpoenaed, I wouldn't have a lot of personal notes to take. What I do have are a series of notebooks that I have by my piano and by my, I guess you call it my drinking chair. And those notebooks get filled up with fragments and rapid ideas that fill up a blank page. And the notion there is I'll come back to them and extract nuggets of ideas from all of that nonsense. And that will become a podcast episode or an essay or a piece of music. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on journaling. And again, most of it is just an excuse to buy nice paper and cool pens. So, let me know what your journaling practice is. Do you do anything similar? Do you have a similar set of practices? Are you someone who takes notes on a day-by-day basis to remember what you did? I think that's a wonderful practice and something I'd like to build in, sort of reflection on the day in a really thoughtful way. The habit tracker is sort of like that, but not quite, right? So keep your wits about you. Talk to you soon.